Hey everybody, well Janet's here. Welcome to this week's edition of This Woman Can, wherever you're listening to in the world. Now my guest this week is Patria Alexander. She is a self-taught award-winning portrait photographer based in St. Thomas, the US Virgin Islands. Her business, Patria Alexander Photography, specializes in personal branding and visual content creation, focusing on branding high-level women entrepreneurs and thought leaders by branding her life and biz and supporting her in being seen online and in print. She believes that having photos you are proud of can be a catalyst in your career and can inspire you to create and put yourself out there more. She totally believes in growth and being a lifelong learner, connection, being present to enjoy life magic, loves being brave to love unconditionally and creativity, that everyone is born with an abundance of it and should tap into it. Now, I met Patria when I was on my own branding journey, and I wanted some professional photographs done for my social media and my promo activities. And I saw her work online and some of the work she'd done, and I've pretty much followed her keenly since then. And I have to say, I've seen the progress and the development and what she's done, and I've always been a big fan of her work. So I'm delighted to turn the tables on her today. And even though it's not a camera, it's definitely a microphone, and she's in the hot seat as opposed to me being being photographed. Patria, welcome to This Woman Can. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great, thanks.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm not going to, tell us a bit more about your journey and how you got to where you are today. Because you said you're self-taught in your bio.
Yes, so I went to university for nursing. So originally I started out as a registered nurse, working with the maternal child health population. And I live in St. Thomas, US Virgin Islands. And in 2017, we had a pretty devastating hurricane,
Right.
Hurricane Irma. And so after the hurricane, I had to keep my son with me, and our house pretty much got
Wow.
destroyed. And so we took a break from St. Thomas for a while, and I relocated to Antigua in the hopes of giving my husband a chance to rebuild, get
Right.
things together,
Yeah.
instead of keeping my son here and trying to navigate the devastation that happened back then in 2017. And so when I moved to Antigua, I'd always been interested in photography, but it's just something that I never um, pursued.
Right.
So when I got to Antigua, I was looking for a way to express my creativity, to figure out how to feel better about the situation, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, creativity was what I leaned on to. And I went back into thinking about photography, and I got a camera while I was there in 2018. So I got there in 2017 in October, and I kind of went through the transition,
Yes.
just getting everything through my mind, figuring things out with my son, getting ourselves comfortable in Antigua. And in March of 2018, I got a camera, and that's where it all started
Wow.
with photography.
Just a camera.
Yes,
Now,
a camera.
oh, wow. Now, that's a great story from registered nurse to award-winning photographer. And especially poignant to know you were prompted, obviously, to make that change because of disaster and
Yes.
going through the pandemic. Whilst it, for some, it couldn't even be replicating that per se. And a lot of people are probably being forced, a lot more now, people are being forced to pivot, to change in their careers. I know I've certainly changed in my careers over the years, but out of choice. Now, you, for want of a better word, were forced to make that change, to make that pivot. So, what were the kind of thought process you went through with going through that change?
I'm sorry. Can you ask that again? I kind of missed the connection. I'm sorry.
Got to get my thought process back. Right. So, so you pivoted from registered nurse to award-winning photographer, which is a fantastic journey, which is a huge pivot. And obviously you were driven to make that change because of disaster. And there's probably quite
Yes.
a few people right now going through some thought processes to how do I make that change? They've lost their job because of the pandemic or for whatever reason. So what were your thought process? How did you embark on this journey to say, look, I'm going to make a career out of photography? What were your thought processes?
Yes, so the thing is, I'm so glad you're connecting. I mean, it's different, the
Yes.
hurricane and what is going on right now with the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it sort of puts you in a space where you're thinking, if I don't do this, things are going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You're on the trajectory and you're thinking career, you're thinking, well, I had a plan with my nursing career. And some of the things you think about, you're putting it behind because you're saying, well, I have time to figure that part out.
Right.
That I've always been interested in photography and art, but I always thought it was something that I could get to eventually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when the hurricane happened, it sort of put my headspace in, well, Patria, you're in this road, but you don't know, it's like you don't know how long you have or how much time you have,
Yeah.
and it kind of pushes you to explore things that instead of leaving it behind, you dig in, you dive in, and you explore. And with this pandemic, it sort of put me in the same space because I've
Yeah.
always thought of what else can I do? How else can I support
Mm.
the women that I work with my
Mm.
photography?
Mm.
But with things being normal, I've just stuck on the same route with
Yeah.
my photography. And
Yeah.
so the pandemic has now pushed me into further looking into things that I had thought that I wanted to do. I now have the
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
get it going.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a catalyst to a next step.
Right, right, and I think the whole idea of maybe pivoting and stuff, especially in this current climate, there's almost an element of control, because I do think that because you've lost, maybe people lost their job or what's happening, that I cannot, I lose the level of control, and I always say to focus on controlling the controllables. And as you said, one of the things you can control is how you approach your career. What do you do with the time that's presented to you? So throughout this whole journey so far, the past couple of years, Patria, what has been one of your, can you describe one of your biggest challenges and how you overcame it?
Yes, so my biggest challenge I faced when I started out was actually putting myself out there, putting my work out,
Ah.
and being scared about what people might think.
Yeah.
Because coming from a nursing background, and having gone to school, and I did went as far as doing my master's of science in nursing,
Wow.
and so I was scared that everyone was going to say, "Well, Patria, you did all of this work.
Mm.
You went to school. You spent all of this time building this career, and now you just want to drop it."
Right.
And I was terrified that people were going to think, I was just, out of my mind for doing that, because and it's a valuable profession as well. It's an upstanding profession, and people value nurses. So it's not
Yes.
like you're
Yeah.
leaving this profession that's, you understand what I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was very scary just stepping out and saying, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So, and to overcome it, oh my goodness, Janice, I listen to a lot of motivational talks. I listen to a lot of podcasts, like your podcast,
Yeah.
just listening to women who did it.
Right.
And eventually I found the strength to do it myself.
Right. 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 So was it more the fear of being judged about, you're making this transition, and it's maybe a frivolous thing to do?
Yes, I like that word. That's exactly how it felt.
Yeah.
It felt irresponsible, actually.
Right. Right. Right.
Yes, yes, it did.
Excellent. So throughout the whole process, have you experienced any failure, or how has failure made a positive difference in what you're doing in your life?
Well, throughout the process, I had to transition first into actually saying this is what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And then I had to start putting my work out. And initially, when I started, I was really scared to treat it like a business.
Okay.
So I did a lot of just things that for free.
Mm.
I did a lot of free work. I gave out it was the journey to valuing my work
Right.
was a long journey. a really long journey. but that was because of me feeling like what I was doing was irresponsible, and also a culture thing where art
Yeah.
isn't this career that people
Mm,
think you can actually create a business out of, a long-term business actually that can sustain your family.
right.
So I think my biggest transition into actually valuing my work, I think I dropped the ball taking as long as I did to put the value on what I was offering.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
initially, like women, we tend to not put the value
Yeah.
on what we offer quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to go through a long process. Like we have to validate and revalidate, and we take forever.
Mm,
When as soon as you start, just the vision you have for what it is you want to do and just how you do it is valuable,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was that I dropped the ball on valuing my work early on.
And what do you think stopped you from valuing your work, as you said? What do you think stopped you from doing that?
Um, the initial feeling like what I was doing was irresponsible,
Right.
and also just the culture of my family, my
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
And so I felt like if this wasn't, I didn't go to school for
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I shouldn't be, I shouldn't treat it like a business
Yeah. Yeah.
because, and I was new to it as well. But sometimes, if even if you're new to something, because of how your mind is built
Right.
and because of your intuition, you're good at it naturally,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but you're thinking that, well, I didn't go to college for 4 years, I don't have a degree, then like I can't value this and
Yeah.
charge,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I think I've actually met a lot of women who naturally are really good at things, but they just don't feel like it's valuable enough to offer somebody
Right.
else
Right. Right.
as a
Right.
service,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what part does compare? Because I hear you talk about obviously not going to school to study this. You have a natural talent at it because I've seen your work. So what part would I say? How often have you compared yourself to other persons in the field of what you're doing?
Oh my goodness. So many times, Janice. It is insane. I have literally stopped following some photographers so that I can feel comfortable with what I'm doing.
Right.
There are
Right.
mentors that I followed initially, and I learned a lot from them.
Yeah.
And there were times when I attempted to replicate what other people were doing, which is
Right.
very scary to try to do.
Mm-hmm.
And no one should try and replicate. And I don't even think you can replicate someone's art. And when you don't get it like what they have, then you feel bad about what you're doing.
Right. Right.
So I've had to step back and like not follow some people that I mean I love their work, I love what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but just my need to do something like what they're doing, it's negative, it negatively impacts my work.
Right.
So I've had to step back on that
Yeah.
end
Right. Right.
with trying to be like someone else,
Okay.
find
Okay.
my own voice.
Most definitely. So how do you overcome comparisonitis? That's what I call it. When you just make yourself, static because you're looking at, oh my gosh, I can't do what they do. How do you overcome that?
I overcome it when I stopped seeing their work. That
Right.
helped a lot. I
Okay.
stopped seeing because we're on social media, we're going on people's website, we're looking. So when I stopped seeing a lot of it, that helped a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then I understood that I cannot replicate what someone else is doing. And in order to find my voice, I
Hmm.
have to step back. I have to step away. Like I can love something
Yeah.
and not want to recreate it,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So Patria, if you had to start all over again from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
How far back are we starting over?
Wherever,
Before college
as
and
far as
everything?
far back as you want to go.
Starting over, I would say that I would I would go after my love for art
Hmm.
early on versus going down a career that seemed acceptable
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I still circled back
Right.
to to art. So going back, if I knew what I know now, then I would have stayed on and really focused on my art from early on. And I know that would have made me make different choices
Yeah.
for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, sometimes I talk to other women and they would be like, well, I can't focus on art because of such and such. But if we start early on with being intentional, if
Mm-hmm.
you know, well, art, it might take you longer to make this level of income with art,
Mm-hmm.
then you make different choices with family, with
Mm-hmm.
um, travel, with, you know, just practices of like shopping a lot or
Yeah.
consuming so much. You kind of curtail your life to what it is you want to accomplish.
Right. Right.
So if I'd started earlier and I was disintentional, then that's what I would have done.
Yeah. Yeah. What I can hear from you is that you had a lot of inner dialogue, um, inner dialogue going on with maybe your inner
Yes.
mean girl, or maybe not so much your cheerleader. Describe to me how some of that dialogue would have gone when you were deciding to make this move.
Yes. I do a lot of reflections, so that's so true. Um, the same thing. It's a constant conversation with myself on, well, can this be done? Can it
Yeah.
not be done?
Yeah.
Can I simultaneously be a nurse while I also work on art?
Right.
Because that's an objection I heard a lot. Like, you love this, okay, but you can also be a nurse. And
Right.
I still
Right.
get that all even today.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic, like everyone is asking me, Patria, are you going back to nursing? And I'm, you know, I get that question still
Yeah.
today if I'm going
Yeah.
back to nursing, because people just think you're doing photography, it's an art, but you can also do such and such while you're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand all of that, but the way my mind works, if I do something, I'm fully consumed by it.
Mm.
I
Mm.
dive in really deep, and I wake up, go to sleep thinking about the thing.
Mm.
And that has helped me progress so much further with my work, because I am completely consumed by what I do and how to get better at it and how to
Yeah.
master it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the inner dialogue is this: I had to stay true to who I am.
Right.
If I do something, I am fully consumed by it, and so I had to let things go
Right.
and focus.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I probably hazard a guess that some people just saw what you were doing as a hobby, especially now, because you said you're a nurse. This is a
Yes.
hobby. You should be putting something to, and I'm going to put in air quotes here, worthwhile. So that must be
Yes.
that must be pretty challenging. So how do you have that? How do you respond to that?
How do I respond? Well, I usually just explain what I just did.
Mm,
When I tackle something, I'm so passionate about it that me being a nurse would be second. And if I step into a hospital working, I want to be fully engaged.
yeah,
When I was
yeah.
a nurse, I felt like if I get a patient and I didn't want to go home and dig deep into their
Mm,
condition, what could I have done better while I was on shift? What can I
yeah,
suggest? If I wasn't doing that, then that meant that I needed to be doing something else, because, like I say, who I am is I am completely consumed with whatever it is I'm doing at the time.
right, 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 right,
Yeah,
right.
that's so important to know, like, who you are, what your strengths are, and I look at it as a strength that I get so caught up in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
um yeah, I look at that as a strength. Some people can look at that as not, but I look at it as a strength.
I hear we have company. That's okay. That's okay.
Oh,
It's what we have to do when we're working from home in this situation. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. This will be my BBC moment. so,
I'm so
so,
sorry.
but that's okay, Patricia. So how do you navigate confidence issues and get out of that vicious circle?
Well, that is an ongoing process.
Yeah,
That is an ongoing process. Every time I try something new, every time I put out something, matter of fact,
yeah,
you still get the feeling of, who's gonna get it?
Right.
But I get to the point now that I feel comfortable with my work enough that I don't expect the validation for me that has shifted. So
Right.
initially, I needed that validation of people commenting on my work or people calling me and telling me it's great. But now I don't need that validation anymore.
Right.
It has shifted into something else. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and as a photographer, as I said, we've worked together, and we're going to be working together again quite shortly. But what part does perfectionism play in the work you do?
Perfectionism.
Yeah.
You mean like connecting?
No, I mean about the quality of work you put out, what you do, how it looks, the perfection. I want it to be look like this certain way. It's got to be perfect, or I won't release
Oh,
it.
oh. I've been told a lot. I am a control person. I I feel like when I have a client, I don't just step in front of you with a camera in my hand.
Okay.
I have a complete picture of who you are in my mind and how you want to project yourself to the world.
Right.
And this is what I focus on trying to capture. So I direct and I study lighting so I have it perfect and I edit so it looks right. And yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
control in that area there. Because I feel like I want to give you an image that you're proud of.
Right.
And especially focusing on personal branding, I want to give you an image that's going to show the world that this is someone that I want to meet and this is someone that
Okay.
I want to work with. I want
Okay.
people to see themselves successful working with the people that I photograph, you know?
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so
And you touched on personal branding there, and I'm probably hugely into personal branding and having had to rebrand myself over the years. What advice would you give to or share with women embarking on their own branding journey for their career?
one of the the strongest advice I would give is to know what your values are
Mm,
and to know yourself. So you have like just like I was sharing that I know that I get completely consumed with
yeah,
something. That is something that my I feel like my clients will value
right.
because they know when they hire me, I go all in.
Yeah.
So that's part of my personal brand. Um, and then I also value creativity with my work. I value connection, which
Hmm.
I also put into my customer service, in that I connect with my clients several times before I
Right.
photograph them. So
Yeah.
by the time they're in front of my camera, they're super comfortable
Hmm.
and we're getting shots that, bring out their personality. And so I tie in what my values are, my core values, and who I am innately into every part of my work. And that
Yeah.
comes out in, the final product.
Right.
So you have to know what your values are and you have
Hmm.
to know yourself. Yeah, your strengths.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
I focus on strengths. I try
Yeah.
not to think about the other stuff. I focus on the strengths and your core values and that basically is your personal brand.
Right.
And
Very
when you get a
much.
photographer,
Yeah.
yeah, you get a photographer and they tie in your business to that personality and values and create an image that,
Yeah.
just perfectly captures it.
Yeah. Fabulous, fabulous. And for those of you not sure about your values, there's loads of stuff online you can look that kind of take you through your personal values. And it's a very interesting process of kind of a whole list of words and what resonates with you, and you whittle it down to maybe your top five, maybe even down to two. And the other thing to understand as well with this is that your values do change. Mine certainly changed with my move from corporate to entrepreneurship. That was forced by my values had changed over the years, and I hadn't recognized that till I actually went through actually redoing a whole value process. So go online, there's lots of stuff. I'll probably put a link into the show notes that can help you look at values. So Patria, what do you went for your goal, you went for it, and you've been very successful, you're award winning, we'll talk about that. But what do you think holds women back from going for their goals?
What holds us back? It's society, it's how we were brought up, it's what culture expects of us. it's very difficult as a woman to just
Mm.
step out and do something different. And also, it's sometimes a thing you want to do. There are more male doing it. There's more guys doing it than
Yeah.
women, and so you're trying to figure out, is there a place for me? And it's also with financials.
Mm.
I did a lot of research and I collected a lot of data on pricing when I started, and men always charged more. Like, that just happened with photography, with everything. You look at the list, and so I'm sure that makes a lot of women rethink,
Mm.
pursuing certain things, because you're thinking, can I get to that level? Will
Yeah.
society allow me to get to that level?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? So I think it's a matter of strong belief
Mm-hmm.
and really connecting to your intuition,
Mm.
and trying your best to follow that.
Excellent, and you're right. Lots of women. This whole values piece about pricing goes back through to salary negotiation and everything. And it's like, you see, you have to really stand firm in your own values and knowing what you bring to the table for what you charge. So
Yeah.
I think you're in a good. I think you're in a good spot. I think you're in a good
Yeah.
spot. So share with us a success quote or mantra that you may use and why it's meaningful to you.
Success quote. I usually tell myself that the universe has my back.
Okay.
So I feel like if I'm taking a step, I have to believe that, or if you don't use the word universe,
Mm,
God,
mm,
God's got my back. That's basically what it is. And so if I'm taking a new step, if I'm doing something else, if I truly believe that the universe has my back, then I step in differently.
yeah,
I step
yeah,
in more confidently, more assured.
yeah,
But you have to believe it. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
You have to believe that, you know, the universe got me, like God's got me, so I can do this.
Right.
I tell myself that several times a day.
And we talked about what you do
Especially now.
different. We talked about what you do differently. We know what you know now. But what advice would you give to your teenage self?
Oh, my teenage self, yes. I would say, girl, don't care what people think. Really, that's about it. Because
Yeah,
I know so many times I've stopped myself from doing so many things. I
yeah.
can think back on when I wanted to write more, and I was
Mm,
scared to, when I wanted to take a class in art, and I was scared to, when I wanted to, when I started college, I didn't want to do nursing. I actually wanted to go to do creative writing, and
right.
it's so many times I've just always put what people would think before
Mm,
the decision, or I
mm,
just based my decision off of what people would say.
mm.
And so if I could tell my teenage self to not put so much emphasis on what people thought, that's what I would want her to know.
What changed for you there? You say you talk about putting so much emphasis on what people thought. What changed?
Yeah, what changed to make me I think at the end of the day, like I say, I do a lot of self-reflection, and I
Mm-hmm,
do read a lot of self-help books.
mm-hmm,
And so putting myself, engaging my mind with those books, and listening to a lot of like Les Brown. I don't know if
mm-hmm.
you, yeah, so listening to him and his story, and reading the self-help books, and just trying to get my head into, I think I literally reconstructed how I think by doing all of those things.
Right.
Yeah, I literally changed how my mind works by doing all of those practices. And so
Yeah.
that's what got me to where I am, where I will do something and really not care, but
Yeah.
because I know that I'm doing a good job at it,
Yeah.
then I know I'm doing my best with it, then I
Right.
know, like, I don't need the validation of someone else
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we in coach would say, having adopting a growth mindset, is
Hmm.
looking forward and growing and looking at what can happen and how you approach it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Patria, if you talked about Les Brown, you're motivational. If you
Hmm.
could choose your own mentor, who would it be and why?
Well, my mentor have, like you said that over time your core values
Yeah.
change.
Yes.
So that has changed for me, my mentors, because initially I would follow this person and then I would get what I needed and then move
Yeah.
on to something else. So right now in the space that I am, I my mentor is, well, I'm following this lady online. I wouldn't say it's like a mentor because we don't have like personal conversations or
Right.
anything,
Right.
but it's just someone that I follow.
Okay.
And I'm happy that the internet has opened up so much opportunity that we can follow so many different people and dig into who they are. Um, but yeah, I vibe a lot now with people who are online, who are creating basically networks, and they're reaching people globally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my work right now isn't so focused on the creative side of photography. Like
Right.
I've done that. Right now it's more business and
Okay.
more global reach. So
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. 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 Almost done now. Almost done. So, what are the three things you've learned about yourself during your career, Patria?
Well, three things I've learned about myself. Um, I've learned that I'm really strong,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that might seem like a basic one, but I've learned that I am a strong person mentally.
Right.
You know, coming from the devastation of the hurricane and moving, and just a few months later
Mm-hmm.
started with photography. So I've learned that I'm really strong mentally. I've always felt like I wasn't, which is you know a bit weird. I've always felt like I wasn't strong mentally, but going through the process of starting my own business
Mm-hmm.
and creating what I've created, I've
Mm-hmm.
learned that I'm really strong mentally. I've also learned that I am creative, which is
Right.
a story that I told myself that I wasn't.
Yes. Yeah. No,
I
I've been
told
there.
myself that
Yeah.
story for
Yeah.
years, that I wasn't creative, that I couldn't come up with new ideas, that I
Yeah.
couldn't reinvent something. But
Yeah.
I learned that I am very creative. And I also learned that yeah, that success can shift.
Right. Yes.
So
Yeah.
success for me started out as one thing, and
Yeah.
then now it's something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I've also learned, oh my God, there's one more thing, but I have to throw
That's
it in.
okay.
I've learned that oh goodness, I lost my train of thought. I've learned that I was saying that success shifted for me. Oh yes, so my son, I have an 8-year old, and I always felt like I needed to find someone to show him what being an entrepreneur is, or what having a
Right.
business
Yeah.
would look like.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I became that person. I never thought I could show him that.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful that he's literally seen the entire process of starting out,
Yeah.
staying up all night studying, practicing with him. He's usually like the one sitting in the light so I can
Yeah.
practice my lighting. And I'm just so happy that I can show him, and I've become a person that he can one day be like, well, my mom was an entrepreneur and she created this thing with art.
Yeah.
So if I want to paint, I can create it too. I can
Yeah.
use all of these resources, all of these tools, and I don't have to look like the artists back in the day because we have so many resources to us now.
Yeah.
Art is different.
Yeah.
Art is
Yeah.
not you're not trying to sell a piece of paper. You're not trying to sell this one thing. You can
Mm.
create so many things
Mm.
with your talent.
Mm.
So I'm
Mm.
just excited that I grew into that person for him.
And there's a couple of things there from me taken away. The one you talked about creativity, because so many of us go through life telling ourselves we're not creative. I, for one,
Hmm.
certainly did. But then I realized, swapping over, that creativity comes in many different forms. The first thing for me is that I would always say I have a MacGyver mindset, is that I can see a solution to something, even the most mundane things in the garden, how to fix it, how to change, how to construct something. And my husband would look at me going, how the hell did you come up with that idea? I'm like, yeah, because this can happen, that can happen. That is a creative. And even in business, that's a creative process. And then I realized I started writing, and I was writing blogs and stuff like that. And somebody actually said to me the other day, "You're a really good writer." And I'm like, "What, me?" But I write from the heart, from, you know, what I'm thinking, how I feel, what it looks like, which led to me writing a whole book just because I was passionate about something. So creativity takes many, many forms. And then the second
Yes.
thing there was success. How you said about success changed for you. What was it? So if I ask you what success was like in your 20s, what would you do? And how has that changed to what you think success is now?
Oh my goodness. Success for me in my 20s was finish college, start working as a nurse. I was on this path to possibly, well, I've always set the bar really high for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing nursing, the goal was for me to be the director of nursing at the hospital. If I was going to be in the
Yeah.
local hospital in St. Thomas, I was going to be the director of
No
nursing.
surprise there. No surprise there.
If I traveled out, I was going to be the head nurse of or something. I always set the bar, and because I believe in growth and lifelong learning, it never stops for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, success for me looked like that, get in a
Right.
position where it's a leadership role in
Yeah.
nursing.
Yeah.
And over the years, and when I had my son, success for me was being available to him, was the freedom of if he needed, if he was sick, if
Yeah.
I can stay home with him and not worry about work,
Mm-hmm.
that was success for me. And then I transitioned out of the hospital and got a job where I worked from home
Right.
for 2 years. So that was success for me. And
Okay.
then success became even more freedom
Right.
and even more being able to set my own, like I can make my own income goal, and I can,
Right.
so that, so it transitioned. But I'm so glad that when it transitioned, I made the move physically, like I took action.
Right.
When I had my son, I didn't just say, well, I wish I could stay home with him more. No, I actually pursued a position
Right.
where I could stay home with him more.
Okay.
So I took a step towards that, which was another move that everyone thought was, how are you leaving the hospital? But that's just, if something switches for you, you have to take action, you know.
Right.
And it reminds me of this quote, Janice. It's an African quote, a proverb. It says, when you pray, move your feet.
Right.
And you can't just be like, well, I feel this way and this is changing for me, but then you're not doing anything
Yeah. Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
You have to take action. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's otherwise it's just empty words, you know.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
a lot of us would go around, well, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I'm like, I would never want to be in that position. I have to at least try.
Yeah.
You know, you have to at least try. So, last question, Patria. Well, last interview question. Where would we find you on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m.?
Oh, on Saturday, 10 a.m. Yeah, I would be with my son. I
Okay.
don't do any photography work on weekends usually. Very rarely
Yeah.
I would do any photography work. Saturdays are for him. You'd find us doing something together
Right.
in the yard or at the beach or in the park or something like that. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
And so, tell the listening audience a little bit more about your work and how they can get in touch with you.
Yes. So my website is my first and last name, Patria, Patria Alexander, Alexander.com. And I put most of my work on my website. It's another thing that I'm trying to tell a lot of the women that I work with. Social media is there for us
Hmm.
to enjoy and to share our work. But if you're doing a business, if you have an art that you want to share, you have to own the content.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the only way we own the content is when we create a website of our own.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time on my website. I do have social media, Patria Alexander Photography on Facebook and on Instagram. But you will get the most value out of what I do. And of my work on my website.
Excellent.
That's where I put like my entire heart and
Ah,
soul.
fabulous,
There.
fabulous, fabulous. So, Patria, that was my last question. It was lovely interviewing this morning. And thank you for joining us on This Woman Can.
Thank you so much for having me, Janice. I just wanted to add before we go that before I photographed you, I followed you on social media as well. And I saw your work, I read your background. I saw when you were talking about your book and all that good stuff. And I just saw you as someone that I would have loved to photograph. And when you reached out, I was over the moon because it was nerve wracking because you were coming from such a high profile
Yeah.
background. So I felt like I really had to get it together when you came.
And you
And
certainly did.
thank you, thank you, thank you. So it was amazing working with you, and yeah, I always talk about the experience with you, and I always send people to your website because I love your website. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And that's
Yeah, it
janicesutherland.com,
was an
by the
amazing
way.
experience.
So, so, Patria, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yes,
It's been fantastic.
thank you for having me.
You're welcome.